The phone buzzed again, a stubborn hum cutting through the quiet I'd fought to claim. It skittered across my coffee table, Mom's name, then Dad's, then Luke's, like an old family album cracking open uninvited. 6 months had passed since I'd left their house with a duffel bag, my laptop, and a heart finally bold enough to choose itself. No shouting, no slammed doors, just a steady step into freedom. And now they wanted me back? I leaned back on my couch, in my apartment, paid for with money from a job they'd never valued, and exhaled slowly. The buzzing wasn't just noise. It was a plea for the old Avery, the one who always answered, like the rotary phone on their kitchen wall, reliable, dusty, always expected to ring. Mom's trembling voicemails, Dad's heavy sighs, Luke's half-hearted texts, they weren't just calls. They were a question. Was I still theirs to summon? Their chaos was a mine to carry. I didn't want to answer that way anymore. 6 months ago, I'd closed that door, not with anger, but with clarity. Watching the phone shake, I felt a quiet pride. I was still here, in a space I'd built alone. But a small voice stirred. I wasn't heartless. I'd loved them, fiercely, even when it hurt. I remembered being 8, curled up under a quilt Mom had sewn herself, listening to the soft scratch of her knitting needles while she hummed Moon River on winter nights. Back then, love was warm milk and old lullabies, even if it came with expectations I didn't yet understand. Both of us carried wounds, hers from a life I couldn't see, mine from a role I didn't choose. So why this flood of calls now? I sipped my coffee, letting the question settle. The answer, I'd soon find, would unravel everything. To understand why I hesitated, you need to know who I was in that house, and who I wasn't. I was Avery Blake, the dependable daughter. The one who studied late, worked double shifts in high school for textbooks, and graduated college with a degree I'd earned through grit. I was the fixer, the calm when bills piled up or tempers flared. But I was never the favorite. That was Luke. Luke, my older brother, was 33 and still searching. He dropped out of college to explore, burned through jobs like they were weekends, and sank his savings into schemes, crypto, NFTs, whatever flashed online. Mom called it resilience. Dad called it potential. I saw it differently, but no one asked me. When Luke flunked out, they said, he needs time. When he got fired, it was, the job wasn't right. When he lost everything, they sighed, he's building something. But me? If I missed a family dinner for a deadline, Mom's sighs could have powered a windmill. Dad's frowns felt like betrayal, and Luke smirked like my effort was a private joke. I wasn't their daughter. I was their backup plan. I was 10 when I learned the rules. I'd broken a glass washing dishes, and Dad snapped, "Can't you be more careful?" I cried, and Mom, softer then, handed me a warm oatmeal cookie, her hand brushing my cheek. "It's okay, sweetheart," she said, but Luke got a second cookie for no reason at all. That warmth was real, but it came with a shadow. Luke was always first. I landed my first job at 22, a solid one, with a salary I'd fought for. I was proud, expecting a moment of celebration. Instead, the day I got my first paycheck, Mom called. "Luke's out of work again," she said, voice heavy. "Can you help with groceries?" I wired the money, my excitement fading. That night, I sat alone, staring at my bank balance, already smaller than I dreamed. They saw a lifeline. I felt a leash. At 23, I moved into my first apartment, a cramped place but mine. I hung a photo from graduation, proof I'd made it alone. They didn't call to cheer. But when Mom needed a utility bill paid, my phone glowed like a signal flare. I was needed, just not the way I'd hoped. It started small, like most traps do. A call at 24, mid-Monday chaos at work. Mom's voice was soft, almost shy. "Avery, we're short on the electric bill. Just this once. Can you help?" I said yes. What daughter says no? It was one bill, one time. I could manage. But one turned to 2, then 4. Soon it was groceries. "We forgot to shop, sweetie. Can you grab a few things?" So I did every weekend, bags heavy with food they'd never buy. Luke was always there, sprawled on the couch, gaming, while Mom murmured, "He's just in a rough spot." As if rough spot meant a permanent pass. Then came the mortgage. "Temporary," Dad said, sitting in his rocking chair, the one that creaked like bedtime stories from my childhood. "We'll sort it out." Temporary became monthly, then assumed, like I'd signed up to own their house. I was 25, juggling rent and student loans, but they treated my paycheck like it was theirs. Some nights, I'd lie on my living room floor, heating pad on my back, ramen on the stove, telling myself exhaustion meant I was doing something right. But I was fraying. I found an old journal from high school one night, buried in a box. Pages of dreams, travel, writing, a life beyond survival. I'd forgotten them, lost under their needs. I closed it, eyes stinging, and wired another payment. I didn't know how to stop. I skipped meals to make rent, worked weekends to rebuild savings, all while they asked for one more favor. My 21st birthday was a quiet wound. I'd bought a single cupcake, lit a candle in my kitchen corner, and waited for a call that never came. I blew it out alone, the wax pooling like my unspoken hurt. I wasn't just tired. I was unseen. Every forgotten milestone, every "Avery, can you?" carved deeper. At 26, I started therapy, a quiet rebellion. My therapist, Clara, asked, "When do you get to breathe?" I didn't answer, but her question took root. Their chaos wasn't mine to carry. One evening, after another long shift and a call from Mom asking for just a little more, I came home and collapsed onto my kitchen floor, too tired to reach the couch. The cold towel pressed against my cheek, and I don't know how long I lay there, drifting out of consciousness. When I opened my eyes, the room was dark, and my hand brushed an old photo that had slipped from a drawer, a faded snapshot of us at the county fair, Mom smiling, Luke laughing, me clutching a balloon. I held it close, waiting for the warmth it used to bring. I wasn't grieving them. I was grieving her, the girl who lit candles alone, who kept paying when no one noticed, who thought love meant rescue. No tears came, just a hollow space where hope had been. I curled up around the photo, the silence louder than my heartbeat, and realized I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was their backup plan. It was a Sunday, weeks later, and that night on the floor had left a mark I couldn't shake. I'd survived a brutal workweek, had foggy from spreadsheets, shoulders knotted from stress. I'd barely slept, rebalancing my budget after another mortgage payment to a house I didn't live in. Still, I showed up groceries in hand because I always did. I expected the usual. Dad pretending to clean, Mom sighing, Luke glued to the couch. Instead, I walked into a trap. Mom sat on the armrest, lips tight, arms crossed like she was braced for a fight. Luke barely looked up from his phone, legs sprawled. Dad stood in the kitchen doorway, eyes heavy with disappointment. "We need to talk, Avery," Mom said, her voice sharp, nothing like the woman who'd hummed hymns while crocheting a tablecloth just like the one I'd later buy for my own table. I set the bags down.
"About what?"
Dad stepped forward, too calm. "We've been talking. It's time you contribute more." I blinked. "More? I'm paying your mortgage. Every month." Luke shrugged, eyes on a screen. "Come on, sis. They've done a lot for us. It's just money." "Us," I said, turning to him. "You mean me. You haven't paid a cent." Mom gasped. "Don't talk to your brother like that. He's trying." My hands tightened. Trying? His trying looks like nothing while I keep this house standing. Dad's voice grew firm. "Avery, enough. We're asking you to step up. The house is too much. If you were a good daughter, you'd take responsibility." Something broke, not loud, just final, like a cassette tape snapping mid-song. I exhaled, heart racing. "So let me get this straight. You want me to cover everything, mortgage, bills, food, while Luke does nothing. And you don't see a problem?" Mom's lips pressed thinner. "We thought you'd want to help your family." I nodded, clarity settling in. "And what's Luke? A guest?" He sat up, eyes narrow. "Why are you so selfish?" Dad cut in. "You've always been the strong one, Avery. We lean on you. It wasn't praise, it was a weight. For years, I'd carried it like a badge. Now it felt like a chain. I grabbed my bag. I'm done being your strength. I'm not your backup plan. Mom stood, voice climbing. If you leave, don't come back. I smiled, steady. Fine. I walked out. No yelling, no tears, just a clean break. The air outside was cool, like a gift. For the first time in years, I felt untethered. That night, I tried cooking dinner, pasta, my first go. It came out half raw, clinging to the pot. I let out a hollow laugh, not from joy, but from the ache of being finally, brutally honest with myself. I ate it anyway, alone at my table, the taste of freedom sharp and new. The door clicked shut, and the silence was overwhelming, clean, like a fresh page. No more guilt trips, no Luke's indifference, just me and the life I was shaping. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment the next week. It wasn't much, but every creak, every corner, whispered. I was free. I blocked their numbers at first, letting the world go quiet. My paychecks stayed mine. I read books, took walks, cooked for myself. I slept without resentment pressing on my chest. For 6 months, it was everything I'd needed. I joined a book club at the community center, a small leap. The group, mostly folks in their 60s and 70s, welcomed me like family. One evening, Helen, with her sharp wit, told a story about selling her grandmother's oven to buy an Elvis cassette in '59. Worst deal I ever made, she said, grinning, and the room burst into laughter. I laughed too, the sound warm and unfamiliar, like a memory of who I could be. Until one morning, my phone, now unblocked out of curiosity, pinged with a text from Dad. Why haven't you paid the mortgage? The quiet cracked. Not a greeting, just a demand, like I was still theirs to call on. I typed back, I thought I wasn't welcome. Short. Cold. True. The response was instant: calls, texts, voicemails. Mom, we need to talk. Dad, the bank's calling. Luke, you're making this worse. They were unraveling, and for once, I wasn't tangled in the threads. Mom left a voicemail, voice trembling. The house is in foreclosure. Please, Avery. We're out of time. Foreclosure? I'd paid for years. How could this be? Doubt flickered, not guilt, but a question. Where did my money go? I didn't answer. I watched the messages pile up, arms crossed, heart steady. Their chaos wasn't mine to carry. I wanted to ignore them, let their texts fade into silence. But that question, where did my money go, wouldn't let go. I'd paid their mortgage, month after month, without hesitation. Thousands of dollars, sent quietly while they nodded like it was routine, like I was Dad's old ledger in the drawer, pages yellowed and brittle, like his promises. If the house was in foreclosure, something was wrong. I remembered being 8 again, under Mom's quilt, her humming filling the dark. That night, she tucked me in, whispering, "You're my strong girl, Avery." I'd glowed with pride, not knowing strong would become a chain. Now, sitting in my apartment, I saw it. Her love was real, but it came with a price I was still paying. So I called the bank. "Hi," I said, voice calm. "I used to handle my parents' mortgage payments. I stopped recently, and I'm checking the account status." The rep paused too long. Then, politely, "The account's been delinquent for 8 months. I froze. 8 months? That's impossible. I was paying until 6 months ago. She repeated it, neutral as a forecast. Last full payment was 8 months ago. 8 months. That meant even when I was sending money, they weren't paying the bank. I sat still. No tears, not yet. Just the sound of the fridge humming, and a silence so sharp it cut through me. I dug through old bank statements, something I'd never done. Too trusting. There they were, transfers to Mom's account every month, like clockwork. But the bank's records didn't lie. My money hadn't gone to the house. It had vanished into their hands. I sat in my apartment, staring at the wall. I wasn't just angry. I was grieving the family I thought I'd been saving. I wasn't grieving them. I was grieving her. The girl who lit candles alone. Who kept paying when no one noticed. Who thought love meant rescue. For years, I thought strength meant never saying no. But maybe real strength was the whisper that said, enough. I called Luke. He answered, annoyed. You need to fix this, Avery. The bank's relentless. Where did the money go, Luke? I asked, no preamble. Silence. Then a different tone, not defensive but quiet. I tried, Avery. I got a job once, a real one. Dad said it wasn't good enough, that I'd fail anyway. Mom said they needed me at home, to figure things out. They wanted me to need them. And you, he paused, voice low. You always knew who you were. I envied that. I blinked, caught off guard. Luke, jealous? It wasn't an excuse, but it was a crack in the wall I'd built around him. We were both trapped in their expectations, just differently. I'd broken free. He hadn't. That doesn't change this, I said, steady. I sent money for the house. You lived there. You saw the lights on, food in the fridge, and didn't ask why the bank wasn't paid. He sighed. I know. I should have said something. Yeah, I said. You should have. I hung up as Mom called. I let it go to voicemail, then played it, though I knew better. Her voice shook. Avery, we thought we could catch up. We didn't mean to hurt you. Catch up. Like bills paid themselves. My 27th birthday came to mind. No card, no call, just a text from Mom asking for a little extra. I'd cried in my car that night, the weight of being unseen crushing me. I called Clara, my therapist, voice unsteady. They lied, I said. She listened, then said, you don't owe them your future. The words sank in, slow and heavy, like a truth I'd always known but couldn't name. I didn't want to call back. Their lies cut too deep. But silence was a weight, too, holding back everything I'd swallowed for years. I needed them to hear me, not to fix them, but to free myself. Dad called again. I answered. Avery, he said, urgent. We're out of time. The bank gave us 3 days. If we don't catch up, foreclosure starts. I stayed quiet. We need help, he pressed. Just something to hold them off. We'll pay you back. I let out a hollow laugh, not from joy, but from the ache of being finally, brutally honest. You've been saying that for years, Dad. Where's the payback? The honesty? He faltered. We messed up. But this is our home. You grew up here. No, I said, slow and clear. Home isn't a place you're used in. I wasn't safe there. I was a resource. Like your old typewriter in the study, functional, forgotten until you needed it. I wasn't your daughter. I was your backup plan. He softened. We need you. One more time. My eyes stung. Not guilt, but fury, softening into something heavier. You didn't need me when you lied. When you let 8 months of payments slide while I was still sending money. You needed me to stay blind. Mom's voice broke in, frantic. You're destroying this family. I heard Luke, faint but clear. She's right, Mom. We should have told her. Luke, admitting fault again? It was too late. I'm not destroying anything, I said, voice steady. You let Luke coast while I carried it all. You lied to my face while I paid. You called it love when I was useful. Dad's tone hardened. We're your parents. We did our best. Your best was for Luke, I said softly. You leaned on me because I could take it, and because I didn't fight back. Silence. Heavy. Final. A silence so sharp it cut through me. Dad whispered, Avery, don't let us lose everything. I stared at my apartment, small, mine, with a crocheted tablecloth like the one Mom made when I was 10. That night, I'd folded it carefully, not to use, but to store in a keepsake box, a memory kept, a role refused. I already lost everything, I said. My trust. My time. The family I thought I had. I paused, looking inward. For years, I'd thought strength meant carrying their weight. But real strength was this, standing here, saying no, choosing myself. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was free. Their chaos wasn't mine to carry. I'm not your backup plan, I said clearly. Sell the house.
Move.
Ask Luke to step up.
But don't ask me.
You don't owe them your future, and I don't owe you mine. I hung up.
Clean.
Quiet. I walked to my window, heart pounding but light. The city hummed below, alive and indifferent. I'd spoken my truth, not for them, but for me. Anger had carried me this far, but now, something quieter took its place, a stillness I hadn't known I could claim. The silence after that call was different, clean, like rain washing the world new. No more pleading, no guilt. Just the hum of my fridge, the soft whir of the fan, and my breath finding its rhythm. I sat on my couch, phone face down, heart loud. I'd said no, for good. The texts came later, sharp and desperate. You're heartless. I hope you're proud. We'll lose the house, and it'll be on you. Luke's hit hardest. You're proving a point, but at what cost? You're breaking us.
Us.
That word again. They never saw how long I'd bled for us. How many nights I'd sat with my checkbook, like Dad's old ledger, pages yellowed and brittle, trying to make their lives work while mine frayed. My 18th birthday flashback, standing at a bus stop, waiting for a call that never came, the cold seeping through my coat. I didn't reply. Not because I lacked words, but because I'd spoken. Every ignored call, every dollar I kept, was my answer. Their chaos wasn't mine to carry. I started saving again, bit by bit. I opened an investment account, something I'd never dared. Helen from book club recommended a financial advisor, and I followed through. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a future I was shaping. Doubt crept in. Was I too harsh? Could I have softened it? I pulled my knees up, staring out the window. The sky was heavy, rain threatening. Everything felt raw, but clean, like a storm had broken, and I was standing in its wake. They were losing the house. I could stop it. But at what cost? Returning to lies, to being their crutch?
No.
It wasn't about the house. It was about years of choosing ease over honesty, a son over a daughter, my sacrifice over my worth. I wasn't just walking away from their mistakes. I was breaking the cycle, so no daughter of mine would inherit that silence. A letter arrived a week later. Handwritten, shaky cursive on yellow-lined paper Mom used to jot grocery lists. We're selling the house, it read. I'm sorry we hurt you. I didn't see it then. No demands. No guilt. Just ink, regret, and finally a truth I'd waited years to hear. I hung it on my fridge, not as forgiveness, but as a reminder. I'd survived, and I'd chosen peace. Peace didn't arrive like a flood. It crept in, quiet, uncertain, like a song I'd almost forgotten the words to. I turned off my phone, watched the rain tap the glass gently, like the world saying it was okay to let go. The memory of Mom's oatmeal cookies flickered, warm, distant, a piece of her I could still hold without breaking myself. Maybe they'd find a way. Maybe Luke would change. Maybe they'd see what they'd lost. But that wasn't mine to fix. You don't owe them your future. I signed up for a writing class, something I'd dreamed of since that high school journal. My first story was about a girl who learned to say no. The class clapped, and I cried. Not for them, but for me. One evening, a young woman in the class, barely 20, lingered after, her eyes heavy with a familiar weight. She told me her family expected everything, her time, her money, her dreams. I looked at her, placed my old fountain pen on her notebook, a scratched, heavy thing I'd carried through college, and said, "You don't owe them your future." Her nod was small, but it felt like passing a torch. I'd started writing a notebook of my story, not for publication, but to hold it, to share it someday with someone like her or maybe my own daughter, to show what it means to choose yourself, even when it hurts. Last week, I baked oatmeal cookies, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I gave some to Helen, froze the rest. The oven beeped. The cookies were golden. I poured wine, sat by the window. Rain tapped gently. And for the first time in years, I didn't brace for the next storm. I just breathed. If this story echoed something in your own life, a silence you once held, a truth you were afraid to speak, I hope you know you're not alone. This is more than just a channel. It's a room where we put our stories on the table and say, I see you. I've been there too. If you're ready to share, or just want to listen a while, you're welcome here. Subscribe, comment, or simply sit with us. Because stories like these, they're how we heal.